So A-Day has come and gone, and with that, the wait for more Crimson Tide football begins. But you already know, over here, there is no off-season. We're always here talking college football, and with that, we need to break down A-Day yesterday, talk about the good, talk about the bad, some of the things that I found to be encouraging, and some of the things I found to be concerning, and we're going to break it all down. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you, especially after yesterday. Hop down to the comments. First off, Y for yes, N for no. Were you excited about what you saw at A-Day yesterday? Let me know what you're thinking there. And then let me know what both concerned you the most and with what impressed you the most. Can't wait to hear from y'all. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and we're on our push to 15,000 subscribers, and I'd love to have you a part of this community, and if you enjoyed the content, like and comment down below. But with all that being said, let's hop right into this, and we're going to start with the good, because there were several areas we can turn to and talk at length about that I thought proved to be exciting areas for the Crimson Tide. One such area were the backup wide receivers, or the wide receivers playing with the second team. Kendrick Law, Aaron Anderson, and Christian Leary had themselves a day, and especially Christian Leary. He flashed all over the field. But for your young guys in Law and Anderson, they showed why the coaching staff is so high on them. And make no mistake, I'm not saying that means either of them is guaranteed a spot in the starting lineup. There are very talented guys in front of that. We're going to discuss some of the concerns, though, with the wide receiver group. But nonetheless, right, like those guys did flash why the coaching staff is so high on them. And with more time, more development, they're going to be really great football players. And I'm really excited for the other young guys coming in Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond and Shaz Preston. When you look at the freshman wide receiver class Alabama got, just based on the two that we already saw, this could be a really good class, and I'm really excited to see what happens with it. But speaking about the second team offense, I don't think I can go any further without speaking on the second team quarterbacks, and Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. Because if you were wondering what it looks like behind Bryce Young, and that was an area of concern you had, I don't know how concerned you are anymore. Both of those guys actually looked pretty darn good. Jalen Milroe has continued to develop as a passer, and if that development continues, he's going to be a dangerous football player at the quarterback position. The physicality he possesses, the size he possesses, the speed he possesses, and his arm strength are all intriguing tools that he brings to the table, and if that passing continues to develop, he is going to be a fun player to watch. But Ty Simpson also looked good, and you know you have something to be at least at ease about at your backup quarterback position when I'm getting texts from other content creators for other teams saying, hey, those backup quarterbacks, they're playing pretty good. I got a text from somebody I really respect their opinion of, and he said to me, Ty Simpson is throwing the ball really well. He's got some zip to it and is impressing. So that's awesome to see. Both of those guys looked really good. I think nobody could argue that the future is incredibly bright for both of those individuals, and that's a great position to be in for Alabama, especially when you have Bryce Young, the former Heisman winner, as the go-to guy. Having Milroe and Simpson behind him creates a level of ease that I think is comforting to Alabama fans. So with that, that's awesome to see. But what else impressed me? And we can talk about some of the pieces in the defense in which this first string secondary in terms of safeties and the second string safeties, for the most part, had a pretty good day. Jordan Battle is going to be a great player for this defense. I'm so excited he comes back. But also Christian Story had himself a day for the second unit. He looked really good, recorded another interception, and that's someone we're going to have to keep an eye on. Jamir Gibbs is completely as advertised. That's something I couldn't wait to talk about. That run where he planted his foot, cut, and then 75 yards to the house showed why the coaching staff has continually sung his praises. And one thing we need to remember, Gibbs was very effective running the ball yesterday. He's going to be just as effective out the backfield catching the ball, and that is where he's going to really make defenses pay. And why is that so exciting? Well, just very briefly, we can discuss this. Whenever you have a running back with that type of ability that keeps a defense honest, if he jumps out the backfield and starts running a route, it's inevitably going to open up the ability to run in a more traditional sense. Why is that? Because when Jamir Gibbs lines up in formation, the defense is all of a sudden looking at the situation thinking to themselves, okay, well, with Gibbs in there, they can do traditional run sets, but he's also very dangerous out the backfield. And what you're doing is increasing the things the defense has to worry about. You're increasing the amount of bodies that can adversely affect what they want to do, which is only a net positive for your offense. So Jamir Gibbs, going to be such a talented player, such a spark for this offense, and I can't wait to see how it continues. Heading along the train of good things, we can talk about the interior defensive line in which Jamil Burroughs really showed out. I think if some more individuals continue progressing, continue developing, that interior defensive line could be really stout. And if the production from last year is replicated and more guys continue to develop, when you mix that interior with the exterior, well, now things get really scary. And that's where we're going to end the good, is on the exterior. And there are a lot of other areas I could go in the good. There's a lot of other areas we can focus, but that's why I'm kind of interested in hearing from you. But the last stop we have in the good just so happens to be the phenomenal. And that's Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, and Chris Braswell. My goodness me. Those guys right there looked every bit the part. I've said consistently, I think that Alabama has the best edge rush group in the nation, and I've gone through and listed all of the names. I think I could make that same argument about the first three names in that room. I think those three right there could be the best edge group in the nation. Just with those three names. Just with those three names. Will Anderson and Dallas Turner are spoken for, but the depth Alabama yields behind them as far as Jeremiah Alexander, who looked good, who looks like he's going to be a really good player. So many of you have been excited for him, and all he did was come in there yesterday and prove why there should be a high level of excitement. Shahad Campbell is going to be a really solid player. Demoy Kennedy looked good coming off the edge at times as well. So that edge group is one that is benefiting from so much talent, not to mention Keanu Cott, who wasn't a go. So there's a lot of names in there. But if you look at the top of that group, Will couldn't be stopped yesterday. And Nick Saban pretty much well alluded, we don't have anybody that can handle Will Anderson. Nick Saban, the guy who recruits and has had how many number one classes in his tenure at Alabama? That guy said we don't have anyone that can handle 31 right now. Look, Will Anderson was already the best pass rusher in football last year. I think I could make a strong argument that he was among the best defensive players in football. If you're naming the top five, I'd confidently put him up there last year as a sophomore. This year, I think he's the best college football defender there is. And I have no qualms saying that. You can call me a homer, and that's completely fine. Maybe you're right. But I also think I have got a really logical argument in putting Will Anderson at number one. Josh Pate did a phenomenal bit not long ago. Absolutely go check it out about how he was sick that Will Anderson was snubbed from the Heisman. I did a video very similar when it happened. Just could not believe that he was snubbed. But I also have had a year-long war with Pro Football Focus because last year they said Will Anderson wasn't a top 7 edge rusher, which I found to be asinine. And now, coming off of this season, if they don't put him as a top 5 edge rusher, I'm rioting. I'm absolutely rioting. That's neither here nor there. The point of this conversation being, Dallas Turner and Will Anderson are just machines. I'm so happy they are for Alabama, because if they were against Alabama, well, we'd have some concerns. But now that gets us into the concerns, because given that I just talked about the phenomenal, I do think we do need to have a bit of a conversation about the other side of it, the offensive line that was trying to block those guys. And they did not have a good day. Now, one thing we do need to understand, like Nick Saban said, I don't know that there's an offensive line in the nation that's going to be able to comfortably handle Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, especially Dallas Turner going into his sophomore year. Now, a year in the program, a year in the strength and conditioning, and a year understanding the technique it requires to be successful and applying lessons learned, he's only going to be better. Will Anderson is only going to be better. So those two right there, I don't think there's a line in the nation that can comfortably handle them, but it certainly wasn't Alabama's yesterday. One thing we do need to realize, Alabama's line has some injuries, and that becomes very difficult to have a line that can gel with confidence when you have presumptive starters out, and Tyler Steen is coming in. And look, if Alabama's offensive line just struggled in A-Day yesterday, I wouldn't be talking as heavily about this, but the struggles weren't relegated to A-Day. Those were struggles we saw during the season. Those were struggles we saw during the Auburn game. And whenever you have a passer as talented as Bryce Young, if you can give him an offensive line that just buys him enough time, he's going to carve apart defenses. And if the wide receivers can continue to develop, there's some dangerous playmakers on that end too. but it's all reliant on the offensive line. And look, there's still some time to develop. J.C. Latham had some really good sets yesterday. He got beat sometimes, but once again, if you get beat by Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, I'm really not going to hold too much against you, because those dudes are going to beat almost everybody you put in front of them. Those two are not fair. I'm not just saying this as an Alabama fan. So I can give a little bit of a pass when your offensive line struggles with that group. But the reason we're talking about it is those struggles weren't relegated to yesterday. So that's something we've got to watch. Hopefully, once the offensive line gets more guys back healthy, gets Tyler Steen in, they can continue to develop and actually have some form of gelling as a unit, and that cohesion will be very positive. The last area we need to talk about for concern were drops. And oh my goodness me, I get the weather was bad. I have no problem understanding that a drop or two could have occurred because of the rain yesterday. That's fine. But there were much more than a drop or two. And there might be a game this season where there is inclement weather. And if that's the case, you just had an opportunity to practice in that environment, which could be invaluable, and the drops were ever apparent. That cannot happen, especially when we heard this complaint last offseason as far as drops being present. It's something that absolutely killed the Tide in the national championship, and it's something that cannot continue going forward. So outside of that, the only two things that I looked at and I was like, okay, well, this is a little bit concerning, was the offensive line play and then drops. Like I said, for offensive line play, there is a smidge of understanding I can have when you're going up against Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. You're going to get beat by those guys. Every offensive line in the nation is going to get beat at some level by those guys. It's just going to happen. But it's that the problems existed from a year ago. These aren't new problems, and these aren't problems created by those three names, and Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, and Chris Braswell. These are problems that have existed before those guys ever lined up against them. So those are problems that must be worked through, and drops. Drops are something that can be fixed, but it must have the work put into it to fix it. So that's at least an area as far as the drops are concerned. I'm less concerned than the offensive line, because we can fix drops. We can do something to fix that. The offensive line is something that was concerning last year, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a level of concern from here on out about the offensive line. So, with that, very interested in hearing from all of you. Let me know what you think. Let me know who impressed. Let me know what concerned. That's it. See ya.